Mayor, it's 6 o'clock.
We'll call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of Bella Vista City Council for August 4, 2025. Shelley, can you take the roll call?
Council members Hughes,
Here.
Newport, Wilms. Here. Isbell,
Here.
Honchel, and Harp.
Here. And the mayor's present. Mayor, there's a
Yeah.
quorum.
Yeah, the mayor's present, and we have a quorum. New business is, first one is an ordinance. I'll read the ordinance, and then we're going to have a presentation.
Mayor, we need to entertain a motion to suspend the rules of order and procedure and to allow ordinances on the
Oh,
agenda to be
right.
read by title only.
No, we don't have special meetings. Yes, I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules of order and procedure to allow all ordinances on the agenda to be read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
That was Travis and Wendy Hughes. A roll call vote on the motion to suspend the rules of order and procedure and allow ordinances to be read by title only.
Councilmember Hughes,
Yes.
Newport, Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Honchel, and Harp.
Yes.
A motion carried 4-0. I'll read ordinance A. This is an ordinance calling a special election in the city of Bella Vista, Arkansas on the questions of issuing bonds under Amendment Number 62 to the Constitution of the State of Arkansas for the purpose of financing and refinancing the cost of capital improvements, levying a 1% sales and use tax for the purpose of retiring such bonds, and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. We have Cheryl Schluterman from Raymond James here, and also our attorney Ryan Bowman. So if you'd like to speak on the ordinance, start things off, I think that'd be great.
We don't have a microphone.
Probably for TV purposes, we better have one.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, council and mayor. Yes, tonight, this ordinance is in order to issue additional bonds for projects that the city needs. You have to go to the voters to extend the tax, essentially, which I'll talk about in a minute, the 1% tax. So if the voters approve that, the old tax, the current one that you have that's 1% will end, and then this new tax will be in place of 1%. So we typically say it's extending because nothing really changes, but technically it does. So I will let Ryan handle the legalities of that if he would like to speak to that. In addition, the voters will be deciding, if you all pass this ordinance, they will be deciding on whether or not to use the sales tax and issue bonds to provide fire and city admin complex improvements, a new fire station and equipment, street improvements, and police improvements. In addition, and those are specifically stated in the ordinance, and the voters will see exactly what that covers in the ordinance, and they will vote on those items. If they vote yes, then only those items, you will be allowed to issue bonds for those items and finance those items. And then in addition to that, there is a question along with the 1% sales tax extension, or new tax, if you will. that we refund the old sales tax bonds. And what that means is, and that's the Series 2020 sales and use tax bonds, that actually just means refinance. So we use the new bond money and pay those bonds off, and then the funds go into escrow, and then the trustee will pay those until the call date and pay the entire amount. And that's a requirement, it's just part of sales and use tax laws in Arkansas that you need to do that because that tax, the old tax won't be there any longer to support it. So I understand there was some question about that, so I just wanted to explain that. In addition, there'll be a separate question regarding the outstanding Series 2024 capital improvement bond, which is the pledge of the franchise fees is paying that bond. And we're asking voters to also refund that, refinance, pay that off, and that will free up the franchise fee revenues that the city receives so that you can, again, do whatever you want with those funds per the council. The total amount, this is a not-to-exceed amount, and so you won't be able to go over this amount, but you can certainly issue less bonds when the time comes if the voters approve it. And the total proposed ballot amount is $34,395,000. So, and I can go over exactly what each of the projects financing are. There is there any questions before I move on to one more thing? Yes.
So the bonds that we have that are refunding for 2020 and 24, we actually have those bonds and money in hand. Is that right?
You would have received it when we closed on those. I assume that you have
So we've
used
invested it or
that money
whatever,
to
because it was
build the project.
residual monies of the projects. So we need to pay those investors back, is what you're saying. That's why
Yes.
we're refunding, and we're financing it under this extension issue to pay those former bonds back, bondholders back, investors,
Correct.
right? Okay.
And there's a piece of these total bonds that will be taxable and a piece that will be tax exempt. All the new money will be tax exempt, and the refunding pieces will be taxable, and that's again required by IRS tax laws that I won't get into it, but it's required. So any other questions and anything else that you would like me to cover?
Travis?
Yeah, could you say that last part again about the taxable versus non-taxable?
Yes, so when the IRS changed the rules to where you couldn't advance refund, so that's paying the bonds off sooner than 90 days, 90 days before the call date. So if you refund them prior to 90 days before that optional call date, then you have to do it taxable. That's allowed, but it's not allowed tax exempt. So we would have to issue these taxable, and the new money would be tax exempt.
So if I'm clearly understanding, the bonds to cover the refunding is about 11.275 million. And those would be bonds that would probably be sold at a higher rate because they're going to be taxable?
Yes,
that
that
correct?
is correct.
And so the non-taxable, which would be a tax deferred or tax.
It's tax exempt to the
Tax exempt.
bondholders, the interest
That
income.
would be for the balance of it, and that would be probably issued for a lower rate then. So we'll have really two issues out of this, correct?
Yes, there's two series. There'll be assuming all of this is passed,
Yeah.
there will be a Series A and a Series B, so you'll have a tax exempt piece and a taxable piece
Okay.
within the same issuance. One thing I want to point out, though, is that the 11.275 that you mentioned for the refunding, that is way more than what we will actually issue it for. This is a not-to-exceed amount because you will have accumulated funds in your debt service fund, and so you'll be able to use those to pay them down. So I am 99% sure you will not need that much.
And this is just book value book face value.
yeah, basically, we're not taking into consideration any of those funds just to be absolutely certain, just in case something weird would happen. We don't want you to not be able to refund those bonds.
Okay.
One other thing I will mention is that we currently, and the underwriters, I will work with them once we get to that stage again, assuming this is passed by the voters, passed by you tonight. We have assumed a 20-year amortization on these new bonds. And then due to, even if you have zero growth and you maintain the sales and use tax collections that you're currently receiving, these will actually are projected to pay off March 1st, 2035. So it ends up only really being about 10 years. Again, assuming no growth.
Travis?
So I was curious why present this to the voters now and why not wait until the primaries when we're already going to ask the voters to be at the polls?
Yeah, that is certainly something that you can do. There is a benefit to, first of all, we are paying down the current sales tax that's outstanding fairly quickly. And if for some reason it wouldn't pass in November, that would give you at least another shot at it. And it was my understanding as the municipal advisor and talking to the mayor and talking to the financial advisor or finance director, excuse me, that this was needed sooner than waiting until March for that election. So it was my understanding that this would need to be done sooner rather than later.
Maybe that is a question better answered by Kim.
Yeah, better go to the yeah, go to the microphone, that would be better.
Exactly. One good reason is what Cheryl was just talking about, is the fact that if for some reason, we don't anticipate this, but if for some reason we don't get approved, we come back to the table and we've got April to do it. Second reason, and probably more important than that, because this would be a hardship for the city, is if the money, let's see, what do we say, Cheryl, 4 or 5 months after approval is funding?
Yeah, it'll be about June by the time.
Yes. So even getting the money and getting the bonds sold, we don't get money until June. If we do it in March, it'll be 4, 5, 6 months before we get the money, and that'll put us at the end of the year, which means that because we've got this ongoing project at City Hall, we're doing the planning section, we're remodeling ongoing. You guys approved that, 2 meetings ago now? We would basically have to tell everybody no purchases for capital expenses until the bond funds. All right, so do you see what I'm saying? Because we wouldn't have the money to fund all the purchases that they're going to ask for that were on that list, like the cars for PD or the cars for street. Anything that was on the list for next year would have to hold until we get the money. So we would be in a situation where we'd be very, very, very sensitive to cash and or use significant amounts of our reserves. The mayor and I are working on to figure out exactly how well, not exactly, I shouldn't say, we're estimating what our cash position will be at the end of the year, okay, so that we can manage. Even with this, if we're not getting money until May or June, we still have to manage cash flow for the next year. So imagine how much harder it would be if we didn't get it until October or November of next year. So that's one of the compelling reasons. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, I think that's good, thank you.
Yes, thank you, and I didn't mean to run you off the podium, thanks.
Yeah. Wendy?
Hey, Kim, this might actually be for you too as well. What is the plan if this is not past the voters in November or in the spring? Do we have a game plan, or what's that look like for us?
What would that look like? I can give you a better idea. I know that we still have, as I mentioned, we're estimating cash. But I'm trying to remember what the amount was we approved for the current, we have two more phases for fire station number 1. And I believe, based on my preliminary, when the mayor and I talked about this, it would take all of our reserves.
7 million.
So it's 7. So, okay, so yes, so it would come pretty close to depleting. In order to get that project done, we would be digging deep into our reserves to finish just that project.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is things would be a lot tighter, and there'd be a lot of things we wouldn't do. We certainly wouldn't do fire station number 5. I'm not so sure what she was talking about, we'd even complete this project. I mean, we'd complete the part we're in. I don't think we'd do phase 4, which is
And we would have to do things like,
fire bays, the new fire bays.
we would have to start leasing vehicles instead of buying them. There would be no option. Right now, we have that option, but there would be no option at that point. Our road construction work would probably have to either be scaled way back or be curtailed for the year. It would be, depending on, we'd have to make some really tough decisions about, I'd be up here every meeting. You don't want to see me that frequently. But we'd have to make tough decisions about what we could afford to do and what we couldn't afford to do at that point.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to correct one thing. When I was answering her question, you would be able to close on these bonds if it got passed in November, at the end of March or the beginning of April. Sorry, I was misunderstanding the question. One other thing I want to point out on why it's important to do it sooner rather than later. Once those old bonds pay down completely, that tax goes away. So as soon as that happens, then you would have to literally be asking the voters for a new tax, because it will stop. They will no longer pay it in the stores, and you'd have to go back and ask it, and that is a lot harder to do than just extending it. So, and then I do want to say Ryan Bowman is here. He is the one that drafted the ordinance, and so if you have questions about any of that or anything, I don't want to. Normally, this is his show, so yes.
My question is we sold the bonds in 2020, which gave us a residual of 6.175 million. So that's cash in hand, right?
No, that is not cash in hand. Those funds have already been spent. So the 6.175 million is what is owed still and what could be called as of at that call date. So that's what you still owe on the $23 million.
Yeah, basically, we built the public safety facility and the fire training tower and fire station number 3, the new number 3, and that took all the funds from the bond, which was the point of the bond. So we got the bond to build those 3 things, and we did what we said we'd do. We built those 3 things.
Yeah, so on the chart that you're referring back to from our working meeting, April 1st, 2025, there's outstanding just shy of 8.5 million, and then the callable piece of that is 6.175. And then you'll have another payment that will be due October 1st before these bonds would be issued.
So the sales tax revenue that's coming in for both of these issues, when would that pay off? So these are outstanding bonds then? In other words, we've spent the money, so we don't have the money in the bank, or we have some money in the bank.
You only have what you've been depositing in to make the payments to the bondholders, the principal and interest payments. So you received 23 million and y'all have spent that on capital improvement
So we spent
projects.
the whole 23, less a few
Yes.
dollars maybe,
Yes,
and we spent okay, but they were in two issues, one was 2020 and one was 24?
yes, the 24, I believe you've almost spent, if not all of that, that was the franchise fee bonds. So, the franchise fees, that's pledged, those are pledged to that bond issue, the 2024. And that was for Fire Station 1 improvements.
The first phase.
Yes.
Yeah, it was for Phase 1 and 2. Really, it was for Fire Station 1 and this City Hall offices and the fire station offices on the second floor.
Of the old
And,
police station? Of the old police station?
Yeah, but it was 5.4, and it cost, I mean, we paid part of that out of cash on purpose, basically. The bond was 5.4 million, and at the time we took it out, it was for 10 years, I believe, and we knew we could pay it over the 10 years, but Kim and I both thought we'd probably pay it off with this extension, sales tax extension. So this isn't a surprise. This is kind of what the plan was all along.
So if we pay that off, then we're gonna have monies coming in that are not committed now. Right.
Correct, approximately 700,000 a
Yeah,
year.
the payments are about 700,000 a year. So, yeah, it would make our budget that much more tolerable, I suppose you'd say. Easier to manage.
Well, it'll put us maybe in the black instead of in the red.
Yeah. Travis?
Sorry if I'm a little slow to grasping this. So I guess what I understand is there's a chance that the current bond may be paid off sooner, which we would run out, then we couldn't present this to the voters. We would have to redo all the legal work, or what's the issue with if we did pay it off and ran out and had to go back to the voters?
So the ordinance would read differently because it'd be a new tax. And once that gets paid off, the sales tax bond is paid off, that stops the tax collection for that 1%. And so you have your citizens and anyone visiting that won't be paying that. And then you'll have to go back to the voters, and there'll be a new ordinance that says, it'll be slightly different wording that says, I shouldn't say slightly different, but it'll be different wording that will say that, that you're enacting a tax, and then it's seen as being new in a different way because it's not continuing. So I think that's where sometimes you have problems with your voters because they get used to not paying that tax and then you ask for it back. That gap can be problematic sometimes. But then everything else would word the same, except they wouldn't be asking for the refinancing piece because that would be gone. So you'd only have the franchise fee refunding if you wanted to do that.
And then the other question that I still was kind of confused on is the things that the different departments wanted to purchase with the new bonds. They weren't planning to purchase that until next year anyways, correct? Because I think
There's some, it was over 2 years of vehicles, I believe, in a couple of the categories, the departments.
Some of them were 25 purchases and some were 26 purchases.
okay.
So yes, they would, but because of what we have committed for the rest of the currently contracted approval that you guys just did, we would have to look at other ways to finance some of those purchases, right? We would have to go back to the market and
pay off that franchise fee loan, then it doesn't come out of our budget and it doesn't come out of our reserves. So the bond, doing a sales tax bond, is about the only way that you can spread a purchase and improvements to the city to not just the people who live here, right? The people who play here and visit here, they bear some of the burden when they do the sales tax. And it is no change, there is no change to anyone from now to then. It's not raising a tax, it just continues everything. And that's why you do a sales tax bond, is so that you don't have to burden your citizens with increased property tax to pay those bonds, to pay the franchise fee and then Amendment 78. Because we run a really tight, our revenues and our expenses are very close every year, right? Except for $720,000 for the franchise fee. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, so to be clear, I support this. I support presenting this to the voters, and I clearly understand the benefits of it and why we're doing it. The only problem that I have with it is when we're presenting it to the voters.
Oh, I understand, and that's why I want to make sure that this will be a tool that we can use with the voters, and we can send them here, or we can take clips from this, and so I want to make sure, that's why I'm saying, did I explain it in a way that is clear that other people are, I get it, but that's why I'm just checking in to make sure that that sounded reasonable.
I think I'm tracking now, but there's just a couple of issues that I'm confused on still.
Sure.
But maybe I could get with you offline for those. So.
Well, just to clear is if you have confusion, then other people might have confusion. So it might not be bad to bring it up. So anyway, what were you going to say, Larry? Did you have a question for me?
I guess I wanted to try and summarize if I can in my own head. So if this is presented to the voters in November and the voters approve it, then we're looking at 5 to 6 months in order for that bond issue to formulate and be on the market and have cash in hand.
Correct.
So we have between now and 7 or 8 months from today of revenue coming in. So the residual of 11.275 is going to be markedly reduced because we're forecasting that by the end of next year, that bond issue will be paid off anyway. Am I correct in that?
So I was wondering if this is where you were going a few minutes ago. So the amount on the bond request is the maximum. Let's say that
maximum as of the date of approval or date of presented to the vote?
So let's say that the economy craters tonight, all right? We get not another drop of tax revenue.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure that we have the funds to pay it off. So we know that our sales tax is up, I believe it's 11 or 12% for the year. And with if our past is any indication of our future, then it'll be significantly less than the number that you see. Because that money is coming in, and we'll have an October payment, and we'll have a March payment. That's why we have a maximum. That's what Cheryl was trying to stress, was this number is a maximum cost. But if everything went wrong that could go wrong, and then some, that would be the maximum, right? Does that? Yeah, okay.
So what do we expect to have these 275 million reduced to? Is it going to be down to 5 million, 4 million,
I
3
think we
million?
had it, I think one of our
So our
numbers
bond
was
issue is
like,
going to be substantially less potentially.
it could be, what did we did that calculation somewhere and we said it was good. I had a number of 5 million something, 5.9.
Mayor, could I?
Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
maybe
Yeah,
answer as
Ryan.
well? Thank you, Mayor.
Ryan Bowman of Friday, Eldridge and Clark.
Yeah, thank you. To help answer the question, as sales tax collections come in,
Right.
that are being levied to pay off the 2020 bonds, those can only be used to pay debt service on that bond issue,
Right.
okay? And so as your tax collections increase here in the city or decrease, that is going to be money that's either available less or available more to help reduce the amount of new bonds that we will issue to pay off that 2020 issue. So it's really impossible for anyone to speculate at this point how much you would need to issue in, let's say, March of next year to pay off that 2020 bond issue, because you could have a month where your tax collections are up $50,000. Likewise, they could be down $50,000. So all that Cheryl and her team could estimate at this point is what's outstanding. And then depending on how much collections would come in between now and when we close on the bond issue, that would dictate how much in bonds we issue to refund the 2020 bond issue.
So we don't necessarily plan to issue the 34.395 necessarily, but that's what we're authorizing because that's a worst-case scenario.
That is a worst-case scenario, and that's required by our Constitution, that the voters approve a maximum principal amount for each of the 6 projects that are being approved by the voters or voted on by the voters. So there's 6 questions, just to kind of recap what Cheryl has mentioned, 6 questions being presented to the voters on November the 18th. They can be voted individually for or individually against. So you can vote for 1, 0, or all 6. But it's important to remember that the refunding of the 2020 bonds has to be approved in order to do anything, because we are not increasing the tax rate here in the city.
Right.
In order to do that, you have to approve the refunding of the 2020 bonds. So if the 2020 refunding fails and the other 5 questions pass, nothing gets done because you don't have the tax collections to pledge to the new bond issue.
Right.
Make sense?
But we could present a bond issue to fund those, reinstituting that 1% rather than continuing.
At a subsequent election if the 2020 refunding did not pass in November. Correct.
So that's something we'd have to explain to the voters, that they need to vote yes on that piece if they wanted to go forward. Travis?
So, hypothetically speaking, I like to know the worst-case scenario so I can make my decision. If the refunding were to fail this time, but all the other measures passed, could we just represent the refunding to the voters in the
No.
primaries? We'd have to present it all together again?
Correct. Everything would have to be presented to the voters again. Yeah, if the refunding of the 2020 fails, you would have to start over. And nothing gets done on this new bond issue.
So who and how does the marketing to our electorate, how is that done and by whom?
That's best done by the people that live here in the city. And I think it's important to stress that, 1, there's not a tax increase. The tax rate will continue as it currently is. And 2, with no tax rate increase, you are able to do these 4 individual projects. So the fire and city administration complex, the fire improvements, the street improvements, and the police improvements, in addition to refunding the 2024 franchise fee issue, which would free up, as was stated earlier, about $700,000 in general revenues for the city to use for other purposes.
Okay. Are we ready to move ahead with a vote on this?
Mayor, what you're gonna need to do next is entertain a motion to suspend the rules and do a third and final reading.
Oh, right, that's right.
I have a couple more questions.
Larry, go ahead. Couple more questions.
So we have a capital improvement program for 26, 27, and 28, which projects a certain amount each year for vehicles and a certain amount each year for non-vehicle improvements. The totals on those for the next 3 years, in the handout that I gave you, way down at the bottom of the page. The vehicle requests only total $7.227 million, and the non-vehicle costs are $14.172 million. So that's 21 million, if I'm reading that right. And of those, we're only funding how much? Are we funding all of those projects? We're funding 2 years for vehicles, is that right?
Police vehicles, yes.
For police vehicles, we're funding 2 years.
Okay, so that's,
So we had
that's 1,246,000, well, no, it's not, that's 3 years.
It's
It's
about
about
one.
$1 million.
I-
It's about $1 million.
So they run about, we rounded, again, we rounded things because you're gonna have discounts. You know, so if we say we sell a bond for 1.2 million, in this economy, we're not gonna get 1.2 million, right? We're liable to get 1 million. That would be pretty drastic. I think we'd get more than that probably, right, Cheryl? But my point being is that we say 1.2 because we know that the cash in the door is gonna be less. When we sold the bonds for 2020, we got significantly more than the bond. So our net proceeds included a premium. But because of what interest rates are so weird right now, we're expecting a discount. Okay, so you're gonna see a lot of these numbers got rounded for cost of issuance and discount, estimated discount. Of course, again, we don't know what the premium or the discount, things could change and we could have a premium, not likely, but we want a maximum amount of bonds. So that's why we've done it that way. But at the last meeting, at the work session, we gave out a sheet that the mayor had, I put together for the mayor of all the projects that he had wanted to do. And we talked about some of those, and they were, like, for police, it was vehicles, and it was towers, 1.3 in towers. So, and then for streets, there was new home construction, there was some vehicles, and for fire, it was to finish the fire station number 5, including land. And then there were some ambulance remounts in there. And then there was finishing the complex at City Hall, you know, at 101 Town Center.
Which is 7 million.
Right.
And then the fire improvements, new fire station 5, new pumper for fire station 5, I'm assuming, and 2 ambulance remounts, 5.43 additional.
Right.
So that's 12.43 for the fire department. Well, actually, they rounded it to 14.
Well, the general answer to your question is this doesn't match up exactly with the capital expenditures. There's some things on here that weren't on that list. The towers are an example of that.
Right, yeah.
And there's a number of things there. This is not every capital expenditure for the next few years. I went to all the departments, fire, police, and streets, and we added everything up, and it was, I mentioned this to you before in the work session, it was $45 million. And then we knocked some things out to get down to, because we felt like we needed to be in a reasonable price range for the voters. So this is not everything in the world we need, but this would greatly enhance the city's ability to function effectively.
I'll add 2 things. One is this is a maximum principal amount that's on the ballot. So you don't have to issue the full amount for, let's say, streets. You'll only issue the amount that you need to finance the street improvements. To the extent you issue the full amount for streets and you don't need all of that for your street improvements, you can then use that excess to prepay the bonds. So to the extent there's money left over, you can always use it to prepay the bonds. And then secondly, assuming that the voters approve these questions in November, then we will come back with an ordinance that you all will authorize the issuance of the bonds. So you're not blessing the bonds to be issued tonight. You're simply asking the voters to have the opportunity to vote on these questions, and then assuming that the voters approve 1 or 6 or any number of questions in between, we will come back to you with an ordinance authorizing the bonds to be issued. And at that point, we'll have the exact principal amount that the city will be issuing.
Mayor,
Travis?
I'm just curious if anybody can answer why we didn't start this discussion in June so that we wouldn't have to suspend the rules and move to third and final tonight.
Well, it's a matter of having all the information, having things together. And several things happened. One of the things that happened, which is a good thing actually, is our city sales tax collections are constantly better than what was estimated. And as a result, when the bonds were going to be paid off, kept getting quicker and quicker. I originally was thinking this would be in 2027. And the payoff keeps, Kim mentioned about our sales tax is actually up a little bit more than 13% so far this year. And if you had surveyed everybody, local economics experts, local people, myself, Kim Hall, there is no one who would have said, oh, your city sales tax will be up 13%. They said, no one. You couldn't find anybody who would have thought that. And it's not true for most of the cities around us even. So it's, the economy sometimes is unpredictable in different directions, good directions and bad directions, and it's just something you have to be ready for. But, aside from the points, Ryan Bowman really laid out 2 of the really good arguments for this. And another one that I think, personally, I think it's compelling is, I've done this, I'm sure you all have. We've driven around Rogers and Bentonville and Springdale and Fayetteville. And they all have way more business than we have, and they always will. Because you look at our map and see how much is R1 and has to be R1. They always will have more. All of those cities, if this passes, our city sales tax will remain at 2%. And those 4 cities, their city sales tax is at 2% right now. Right. So to say that Bella Vista should have a lesser tax than those 3 when they have so much business seems completely illogical. So this is what we're asking for is completely logical. It's not sort of logical. It's obviously, the right thing to do. So, but we didn't have our act together quite as fast as you would have hoped. Took us a while to get all our ducks in a row. Is my answer to it.
May I add one thing to that? When we got the guaranteed maximum price for whatever phase we're on, it was about double what we had thought it would be. So at that time, I said, well, we need to know what the cost is, because how are we going to fund this, right? We'll have to go into our reserves, right? And how are we going to, how are we going to fund this additional price increase? Well, so we said, I went to our bond attorney and I said, well, we want to write a little thing saying, okay, we want to go back a couple of months and then we're going to start accumulating like we did on the franchise fee. And he told me that that's not how that works. I can't come and get that recapture document for just that part of the project, that I have to go get the recapture for the whole remaining part of the project in order to get a bond. Okay, so that was part of the, now we have to move fast. And oh, by the way, you have to be, 70 days before election, and you've got until this date to get this done. So we went from thinking that one thing and finding out that, we needed approximately an additional $10 million to finish that project. So that's one of the reasons why all of a sudden you saw it go really fast. We thought we had time. We didn't think we would be, needing that kind of money.
Larry?
Relative to that point, it's almost universal in the 50 states that if you're going to finance it by a bond issue for local government, you need to either finance it before you start the project, or you adopt a particular ordinance that incorporates it and says we're going to fund it with a.
Correct.
We'll pay for it out of cash initially, but we're going to pay ourselves back.
Right, the
when we
recapture. And that's
finance
what
it.
I'm saying is that
And
when.
we did that, what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Well, no, when we approved that, the last time we did the recapture was with the franchise fee bond.
Right.
Okay, and so when it came to this one, I thought it was just gonna be the same thing. We just need for this next phase, and then, and we'll get together and we'll start talking about this new thing. But then all of a sudden that amount got really quite a bit higher. And so we needed a recapture for the whole thing. We can't just do a recapture for the next phase and then the following phase, and like that, you have to do it for one project. So the bond people want to fund one project. They don't want to fund this phase and that phase. They want to fund a project, so they know when it's done, right?
Anna?
Oh, sorry.
So my concern is a little opposite of what everyone else is talking about. I'm concerned really with trying to put together forecasting these numbers that are going to be spent over a long period of time when we look at the current inflation, tariffs, everything else that's happening. So if we think about building supplies, vehicles, everything else, my concern is actually opposite, that we may not have enough in the bond. So I'll just state that here. I do support the bond measure, and I hope that the citizens support it so we can continue to run the city. Can you tell me again, so you said once we pay down basically that first section, it's an additional $700,000 per year, and so would that be a cushion then to be able to offset other?
Not exactly. That franchise fee bond, the first year we had it was this year, and our expenses exceeded our revenue by approximately that payment. So the budget that was approved last December included approval for that, and that was before some of you were on council. Okay, so that's the first time that I know of that we have had a known expense that we were theoretically speaking going to have to exceed our revenues. We had to get we had to put that on the budget so you guys knew what we were doing. Okay, so that will go away. So now the next year, and this is always going to be a challenge in Bella Vista, it's going to be a challenge, and that is our revenues don't grow, except for the sales tax, don't grow very fast because, property tax, I'm not going to get on my horse here, Mayor. I'm going to stay off the horse. Well, I'm going to stand next to it for just a second. Property tax, it's virtually impossible. No, it's not virtually. It is actually impossible for us to support the level of service that the citizens of Bella Vista require with property tax.
For the revenue we get from the property tax.
Just never going to happen. Yeah. Never going to happen. Now, so thank God for the internet sales tax. That's all I got to say, because we don't have commercial to the extent that Bentonville or Rogers or any of those people do. So if we didn't have the internet sales tax, we'd be in a world of hurt. We'd be in a world of hurt. But so the challenge is going to be going forward is making sure that the growth of the city is within the growth of the revenue. Right? We've got to, going forward, that's always going to be the challenge for the city of Bella Vista. And that includes sales tax and property tax. Or we have to dip, if we don't, we have to dip into reserves. But you can't live every year dipping into your reserves, right? We all know that. Does that kind of address, our reserves theoretically would be for the extraordinary situation where there were tariffs and problems that we could dip into that. That's why it's important, I believe, to maintain those reserves.
Thank you.
Larry Wilms?
Only one last comment, and that is, I tend to agree with Travis that we're seemingly rushing into this and probably missing some significant needs in our next 5-year future, which we cannot pick up and we'll have to be able to cover by other means as it becomes available. So it will tie our hands on some probably very significant needs that we have coming up.
Again, that is one of the reasons why I am so committed to making sure our reserves stay intact. Because if there does come a point in a time when there is a compelling project that we have to use that money for, we have it available. Be it a new project that wasn't included in the bond, or tariffs, or a bad downturn in the economy. Okay, I think that's all we can do, because we don't know all the ins and outs. And again, as the mayor mentioned, what we didn't think was prudent also was to then go out and say, let's do a $45 million bond. Right, because that was the other option. Everything we possibly can think of. Now keep in mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to spend it in 3 years.
Right.
So from the time we know that the city administration fire station number 1 will be done within 3 years. But we have to make a commitment to spend this money in 3 years. So if we're not going to spend it, we didn't want to include it in the bond. Okay, so that was one of the reasons, and Cheryl and I have had some discussions about that with fire station number 5, right? How fast are we going to build that, and how do we get it built in 3 years? Or is there something else we can do in order to delay issuing that bond for that until we know we're 3 years out? Does that help, Larry?
Mayor?
Travis?
Yeah, I'm generally against suspending rules and moving to third and final just because I feel like it's a transparency issue. Like I said, I support this. I want to present it to the voters. Hindsight's always 20/20. I wish we would have thought about this a few months ago so we could have had the proper 3 readings and given all of the citizens time for their input. However, since we are sending this to the voters and it doesn't end in the council's chambers, I feel a little better about that. So I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
Second?
Second.
That was Travis and Wendy Hughes. Roll call vote.
Council members Hughes,
Question is on suspension of the rules.
Yeah. There's a question on suspension of rules and move to third and final.
Councilmember Hughes,
Yes.
Newport, Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Hanschel, Hart.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0. I'll go ahead and read the ordinance for third and final time. An ordinance calling a special election in the city of Bella Vista, Arkansas, on the questions of issuing bonds under Amendment Number 62 to the Constitution of the State of Arkansas for the purpose of financing and refinancing the cost of capital improvements, levying a 1% sales and use tax for the purpose of retiring such bonds, and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto.
Motion to approve?
Second.
That was Wendy Hughes and Anna Isbell. Roll call vote. Yeah, the question is on the adoption of the ordinance.
Excuse me, Councilmember Hughes,
Yes.
Newport, Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Hanchel, Harp.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0. Next one is a resolution of intent regarding capital improvements, and I think Ryan Bowman will explain this to you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the resolution before you allows you to go ahead and spend city funds on these projects before the bonds are actually issued, and then once the bonds are issued, you can reimburse yourself from proceeds of the bonds for the expenditures that the city made in advance of the election. So in particular, I know this would apply to the fire and city administration complex. This is required by federal tax laws in order to refund or reimburse the city for those expenditures from proceeds of tax-exempt bonds.
So if this passes, does this go back 60 days from today's
It goes
date?
back 60 days from the adoption of the resolution. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, is that different than what we adopted before to make the costs on?
You did a similar resolution in 2024 in connection with the franchise fee bond issue, but you've not done a reimbursement resolution for the sales and use tax bonds
We
this year.
did one a couple of months ago to make the costs eligible. We didn't, huh? But we did that to allow the project to go forward for the next phase.
Yes. Yes.
Not include this resolution. It just, you guys approved the expenditure.
Yeah, a couple of months ago. Yeah.
This resolution allows you to reimburse yourself from proceeds of the bond, so a separate resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Travis Harp. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Hughes,
Yes.
Newport, Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
Hanchel, and Harp.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0.
Mayor, here is a, if I could just sit before you officially adjourn. Before everyone leaves, Ryan has a document that we need everyone to sign to acknowledge that you had notice of the meeting tonight. This is just part of the documentation that he needs to complete his file in order to do what he needs. And we'll get signatures from the others when we're able to get them. But before you leave, Shelley's got it, and I'm sure Ryan can answer specific questions as to why. But we do need a signature on that before you go, and signature here, it'll be easier. So I just want to make that announcement there.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, why don't we just pass that document around after, we can go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you all.